Okay, welcome. Thank you so much. Good to see you all, and thank you all for joining. We are pleased to have you here on our session this afternoon, where I have a fabulous panel. We're going to talk to you about how we support local communities and strategies, really taking us from the very beginning of the procurement journey to the very end, where communities are delivered benefits. Please allow me to introduce you to our speakers. We've got Jess Conley from Manchester City Council. She'll be up next and she'll be presenting. We're also joined by Andrew Jordan from JC&Co and Mark Shearer from ActionFunder. Quick introduction from myself. I have the pleasure of working with organisations who are on the buyer side of this journey. That might be public sector local authorities like Jess. It might be central government departments or agencies who are procuring goods, works and services, and they're buying them from the supply chain. So that could be somebody like Andrew at JC&Co. It could be a number of strategic suppliers to government, or it could be SMEs or VCSEs who are delivering in response. We have a really fantastic position of being able to see what's being asked for and what is being delivered. I will, throughout the session, share some of that insight with you, and we'll be focusing on what makes a good bid for both the buyer, the bidder, and communities, and how we inject innovation into that process so everybody gets the best deal. So we'll start by inviting Jess to present a few slides to talk you through how she approaches this from a buyer perspective. Good afternoon, Jess.
Afternoon, thank you, Leo. Afternoon, everyone, and very much thanks for joining us. So I'm just going to get the slides on screen now. Okay, so hi everyone. As Leo already said, my name's Jess Conley. I am Senior Project Manager within the Highway Service at Manchester City Council, but I am part of the team that leads on social value for the service as well. So just moving on, I thought, given the theme of the webinar, it'd be a great place to start to look back at some of the remarks made by the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, at the Social Value Portal Conference of 2021. So at the conference, the Mayor said that procurement in Greater Manchester needs to be specific, tangible and a measurable output that we can drive change through. He also said that the public sector needs to make social value very specific so companies can show what they're delivering. So I just thought for this webinar in particular, it's very important to emphasise from a buyer's perspective to have those tangible and specific measures of social value delivery throughout the process. The GMCA do have their own social value framework that ensures social value is used to tackle the inequalities across the region and ensuring that social value delivery is fair and sustainable. More information on that framework can be found on the GMCA's website if anybody is interested. So just moving on to Manchester City Council's approach to social value. So since the Social Value Act of 2012 was implemented, Manchester City Council has led in generating social value through its procurement, its own operations and its wider influence with the organisations across the city. MCC's Social Value Policy of 2022 aligns with the themes of the Greater Manchester Combined Authorities Social Value Framework, and some examples of Manchester's social value delivery can be seen on screen. So we have examples of creating employment opportunities for people from disadvantaged backgrounds, setting a zero carbon agenda, becoming an accredited real living wage employer, signing up to the Care Leavers and Armed Forces Covenants, and ensuring that we have robust support for the voluntary and community sector. We've also ensured that social value is embedded within the planning application process. And finally, Manchester have mandated that social value and environmental sustainability makes up 30% of the tender process currently. So a bit more than what is mandated in PPN 0620, which is 10%. We are actually at 30% for our tenders. So in terms of the highway service itself, we've been working with Social Value Portal since 2020. We've been using the portal to track, monitor and report our social value data, and we've been using, alongside our Social Value Portal advisors, we've been working to cascade the new reporting process down to the supply chain and the wider highway service. Currently, we are at really positive space with our social value delivery, and we've come on leaps and bounds since 2020. And I think it is due to having that robust reporting structure in place. We've also revolutionised our questions during the tender stage. So that's more about using the national TOMS frameworks, have KPIs to framing the questions around. So helping with those targets to be specific, measurable and tangible as well. So in terms of the tender process from the buyer's perspective, what we're looking for, we're looking for the tender response to be relevant, specific and concise. Make sure the question being asked is answered. Make sure that everything in the response is relevant to the question, and just do it as concisely as possible. Providing tangible targets for the tender is really helpful. It helps us as a buyer understand what you will be delivering for the duration of the contract, how you will be delivering it and when. Use the additional tender documentation that buyers will provide. It might have highways. Also for highways perspective, we have our social value strategy in there. So the priorities for the service that are just a bit unpicking those priorities corporately a bit further. It will have KPI specific that you can include for targets as well. I think another important thing, and it's very important, especially for the webinar today, is research the locality where the work's taking place. Social value delivery should be bespoke to the locality. It should create a lasting legacy, and it should help to resolve some of the inequalities within that particular area. So really use tools such as ActionFunder to find that bespoke social value that you can use as a response in your tender, and showcase how you can leave a lasting legacy as a supplier. As mentioned, social value is not just a tick box exercise. We've mandated that it is a 30% weighting in our tenders, so it shows the importance of social value for Manchester City Council as a local authority. So do your research and really ensure that you are providing good quality responses to the questions asked. And as well, showcase what you've been doing previously, provide evidence within the tender itself, show the approach that's been working for you as a supplier, and give the qualitative and quantitative evidence as well. It's really good having stats and figures to understand what's been delivered within an area, but also it's good to have some qualitative information and bring that social value delivery to life, bring the human side, emphasise kind of the impact it's had upon the local community. And then just finally, just referencing how ActionFunder can be used within a tender and really get the hyperlocal social value. So ActionFunder as a tool can really help provide a wealth of bespoke knowledge for a tender submission. The tool, as Mark will demonstrate later, provides organisations with opportunities within a particular area. So you can use that very hyperlocal knowledge within your tender submission itself. You can also make your social value offer bespoke and really showcase how you can document that progress through social value delivery as well. So, creating the case studies as they come along rather than it just being at the end of a process. It can also signpost suppliers to groups within a particular area and provides a different dimension of engaging with the VCSE sector. So rather than relying on, say, social value leads or neighbourhood officers or waiting until the contract's been awarded, you can start to get a head start and really understand what's within a particular area and what opportunities may be there. And again, just reiterating about using both qualitative and quantitative case study evidence to showcase any particular social value delivery and the impact it's had upon a particular area or group to create that lasting legacy. that's just a little insight into social value from the buyer's perspective. So I'll stop sharing the screen and hand back over to Leah.
Thanks so much, Jess. I have a few questions, but I'll save them until we talk together as a panel. Over to you, Andrew, please, if you don't mind presenting on your perspective.
Thanks very much, Leah, and good afternoon, everybody. I've prepared a few slides, just firstly to introduce who JCDecaux are and explain really the importance of social value to our business, and then sort of leading in from Jess's presentation to explain in a practical way how we've managed to deliver social value benefits to the community through a new contract that we've signed with Manchester City Council. So firstly, in terms of who JCDecaux are as a business, well, we're the world's largest provider of out-of-home media services. So you will have seen our advertisements as you're out and about at bus stops, rail stations, shopping malls and supermarkets across the UK. The business was founded by Jean-Claude Decaux, who's pictured on the slide here, back in 1964 in Lyon, France. And the quote from Jean-Claude Decaux really sums up the ethos of our business. He said that outdoor advertising can only last if it offers two services: the provision of information to the public and the provision of public amenities. And really, as the quote says, his whole career was driven by an obsession of always using our advertising-based business to serve the community. And that's very much still at the heart of our business today. We like to think that our business is an example of a true partnership model. We have over 50 contracts with transport partners and municipalities across the UK, and there's some examples of our partners here on the right-hand side of the screen. Over 40% of not just our revenues, but the whole out-of-home industry is returned to the community and the local authority partners that we have through the payments of revenue shares and also business rates. And over 4,000 jobs in the UK are supported by the out-of-home industry. Our advertising really is at the heart of the UK's communities. You'll find us on the busiest high streets, rail stations, airports, malls and supermarkets across the UK. And with that in mind, I thought I'd give you some examples of how, as a wider business, our social value offering has evolved. Last year, we launched the Community Channel, which is an opportunity for non-profit organisations and charities to bid for the ability to display their creative copy across our advertising assets in the UK. We're very proud to have partnered with Stephen Lawrence Day, Invisible Dust, which is an anti-pollution campaign in London, and also, of course, the Coronation Big Lunch, all last year. And this is open for all organisations to apply for through our website. We're also proud to have partnered with the mayors for Greater Manchester and London in their efforts to tackle homelessness, and we'll be supporting their campaigns again this winter as we lead into a difficult time, of course, for homelessness in both cities. And in terms of sustainability, we've committed to a three-scope approach to bring our business to net zero emissions by 2050. We're working with an organisation called Planet Mark to certify and validate our carbon measurement. But of course, this is something, these initiatives are across our wider business, and of more relevance to the conversation today is the commitments that we're making through tender responses and just how important social value delivery now is in the procurement of new contracts. So if we look at the example of Manchester, we were delighted to be awarded the new contract with Manchester City Council in 2020 to operate a network of 172 digital screens in the city. The scoring of this contract was really interesting at the tender level. 50% was based on the commercial price performance, but 50% was based on quality. And of that 50%, 20% was attributed directly to social value and the impact that you could make to the city. So our bid followed two strands of approach. The first was on sustainability. We committed to use 100% certified clean renewable electricity to power our digital advertising displays. We also committed to service them through a fleet of electric vehicles to minimise emissions through our operations in the city. And we've managed to divert nearly 100% of our waste across this contract away from landfill, which is a huge achievement. But in terms of the direct social value benefits we've been able to offer the citizens and the communities within Manchester, 25% of the advertising screens that we have installed also feature air monitoring sensors through our air monitoring partner Airly, along with a free Wi-Fi service that we're running through the city with over 6,800 individual uses each week. We've also committed to work with Manchester City for Trees and to plant 5 trees for every digital unit we install, which will lead to more than 430 trees being planted over a 10-year period. We've joined in partnership with the Greater Manchester Mayor's Charity and committed to £25,000 per annum funding to help fund frontline services to tackle homelessness across the city centre. We have taken on our second university placement student this year, and we will continue to operate this throughout the course of the contract. In the first year, we partnered with an organisation called Hubbub, who we worked with to launch several projects in the city to deal with the climate change awareness campaign, but also working on individual projects for the greening of the city. And we have now committed to a £9,000 fund with ActionFunder to fund social value enterprises across the city, working with local community groups and charities. And £3,000 of that 9,000 has now been awarded with successful applications made, and we'll have separate stages of that running throughout the year. So it's a really comprehensive offer that we made to the city, which was all built around their requirements for the city moving to becoming a thriving, livable, connected, progressive, skilled and low carbon city. Thank you very much, and I'll hand back to Leo.
Thanks so much, Andrew, and especially for sharing those real tangible pieces of information and commitments that you've made. We look forward to talking to you about those shortly. And our final presentation of this session before we move through to Q&A is with Mark Shearer.
Thanks, Leo. Right, let me share my screen. So what I'm going to do is show a couple of slides, and then I'm going to show a hopefully you can see that, and then I'm going to show a quick demo. Thanks everyone for coming, and appreciate you being here and listening to what we're up to at ActionFunder. My name is Mark Shearer. I'm the co-founder and chief exec of ActionFunder. So what is ActionFunder? Everyone's probably thinking, and we're effectively a speed dating funding platform matching grants with community projects. And let me explain why. We totally believe in the power of local people to solve local issues. We saw this over the pandemic happen, but this has always been the case. Local communities and local leaders really know what they want and need to be able to make that social jump or leap locally. But it's really difficult, this whole area of receiving and distributing grants. So the first circle here is you can see that 900 million is spent each year by non-profits just on applying for funding. That's the equivalent of 35% of the total value of that marketplace. It's absolutely crazy. The second is that most of the money goes to very few charities. And there's a crazy stat here that 86% of grants in the UK go to just 4 charities. And the third is that if you're a donor, you're paying fees of sometimes more than or up to 25% just to distribute the funds. So ActionFunder, we developed this as the solution, and there are three things that the platform does. Firstly, it enables companies and local authorities, basically funders, to launch their own targeted grant funds. Secondly, that then enables them to match and fund projects through the site and create a portfolio of supported community projects. And then thirdly, we can collect the impact and the stories from that portfolio. So our vision is very much thousands of companies and foundations backing millions of community projects to create huge social impact and business value. And our mission is to get the right funding at the right time to the right people. Just a bit of a heads up, we've been going just over 2 years. About 150 funds have launched on our site. We've got about 9,000 non-profits who have created 4,500 projects they need funding for. And about 750 projects have already been funded, benefiting about 500,000 people. And what's lovely is that over 450 have actually finished their projects, and we've seen 1,500 updates already. And I think the key thing here is you can see some of the companies that or funders that we work with, but I wanted to pick out on the left-hand side two of the various benefits of working with us. One is that by using our platform, and I'll show you this in a minute, you can see what that community needs. So the funding becomes demand-led rather than funder-led. And the second thing is that we can reach the really local grassroots communities. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to reshare my other the website so that I can demo. So if you just bear with me. Ooh, I don't want to do that. Sorry, wait a minute. Here we go. So hopefully you can all see a page that says Sir Robert McAlpine on it. So each funder gets their own profile page on our site. You can see here McAlpines have launched about £380,000 benefiting 68,000 people. You can see they've done that across 28 different funds across the country that are important to them. From those 28 funds, they have supported 94 different community projects. And you can see from those 94 different community projects, you can see the updates that are coming through when it loads. Ooh, let me just click that. It might be because I've got the presenting going on that it's taking slow to load. Here we go. This is really important because you can see where the money's going and all the updates coming through from all the projects in real time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you behind the scenes. I'm logged in as McAlpines here. They let me do this, very, very kind. And I'm just going to show you what we call is our community discovery tool. So if I take the Manchester City postcode here and I select, let's say, 10 miles from that postcode, and I look at the 10 different focus areas that the projects are categorized into. So let's say all of them at the moment. And let's say I want to give up to £10,000 per project. I click search here, and you can see that within this, within that search, there are 176 matches, project matches. There are actually 360 non-profits in that area. Collectively, they want 700,000. The average grant amount is about £4,000, and you can see that if you funded all of them, about 140,000 would benefit from that. You can see a breakdown at the bottom here of the non-profits. But you can see how you can filter this. You can say maybe 5 miles. Let's just look at education, employment, climate and nature, mental health and well-being. And you can see how this will change the project matches to be relevant to what you want to see. The last thing I'm going to show you is we're in the dashboard here, and you can see there are 4 stages of grants on the site as a funder. You've got those grant funds that are pre-launch and pending approval. You can see SRM. So McAlpines have 8 funds that are launched. They've got 7 that are in delivery. That's where the money's gone across. The projects are doing their thing. And they've got 13 that are completed. That's where all the projects have finished and filled in their impact surveys. I'm just going to show you behind the scenes the dashboard for their Edinburgh grant. You can see they've got 5 projects. You can see the status of the projects. You can go into each one. You can see they've had 18 updates from this fund in Edinburgh alone. They can share this out through their social handles, like it, etc. But the last thing I'm going to show you is probably the most important bit. We can capture the information on these projects when they get selected. So the breakdown of how many projects, how much money they're getting, estimated volunteers, where they're located. You can get an image library from all the posts that come through, and a breakdown of the UN goals, the SDGs. We're going to be integrating Tom's framework with Social Value Portal shortly, and a breakdown of the types of non-profits. But as I said, when the projects are completed, the non-profits fill out an impact survey. And again, we're going to align this with Tom's and Social Value Portal. But effectively, you can see here the top social media posts. You can see the actual number of beneficiaries. In this case, 189% of what they thought that more than they were going to get. You can see a breakdown of how these funds have benefited the local community. Quotes, the types of people that have benefited from this funding. So people with disabilities, those who are economically disadvantaged, under 18, etc. And you can see, you can put in bespoke questions and then further outputs. I won't go into it further, but you get a good idea of what the system does. So I'm going to stop sharing there, and I'm going to hand back to Leo. And thank you very much, everyone, for listening and hearing a bit more about what we do at ActionFunder. So back to you, Leo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so can I ask that as we bring the speakers to the panel, you have a think in the audience about any questions you would like to ask them. We're going to kick off by taking a slow walk through the buying process. And so this is a question, Jess, for you and for Andrew. Jess, you told us what bidders can do to prepare, to get themselves ready to respond to a bid. It seems that we've got a mixture of bidders, so commercial team colleagues on the phone, and also those in delivery who'll be delivering what the commercial team agree to. From a bidding perspective, as our bidders are preparing for a bid, Jess, what is available? Can you take us through that really slowly? If they're coming to Manchester and they're trying to get themselves into a good position to win work with you, what can they do in advance of the bid that's really going to help them to tailor a bid to exactly what you need?
So I think first and foremost, it's just obviously completing some research in terms of Manchester City Council itself has its own social value policy that can be accessed on the council's website. That outlines the corporate approach to social value, the types of things we're looking to see within delivery and want targets around, and what our key priorities are. So whether it be getting long-term and unemployed people into employment, supporting care leavers or armed forces, and supporting the VCSE sector. So that would be the starting point, just to get a flavour of what Manchester's doing, to understand what's driving those corporate objectives. And then I think for from a highways perspective, if it was, say, a highways contract, we ourselves have got our own social value strategy that has got our own priorities that do link to the Manchester corporate priorities, but we've just unpicked them a bit further and then made them a bit more bespoke for the civil engineering sector. So, for example, we know that not many women are in construction within that particular sector. So that is one of our priorities. So it's still linked to that core objectives of Manchester's social value policy, but we've just kind of unpicked them a bit further. And I think where possible as well, and Andrew might be able to jump in terms of, we are a buyer in terms of putting all the information out there, but I don't know how it's kind of received sometimes from the opposite side. But all the tender information we put in those packs isn't just to, it's there for to help with the tender responses, to kind of give pointers and direction in terms of how to answer those questions that you might be asked, to give themes around key priorities, to really draw out upon the social value that we as a city want to see, and the groups we need to support, and really draw it out to make sure it is on that local level. I think that is first and foremost. We want social value to be delivered by, for Manchester residents, community groups, for the works that's going on for Manchester as well.
So, Jess, we talk about it being a local bid, and Manchester's a very big city.
Yes.
How local is hyperlocal?
if everyone doesn't know, I'm sure people won't know. So Manchester is made up into wards. So normally works will be delivered in a particular ward. So you could get a flavour of what that ward may be from the tender documents itself. So the scope of works, knowing where the works might take place. That would be the starting point in terms of that would be the hyper-local. So where possible, we do want to see, and councillors want to see it at scrutiny committees, things like that. They want to see what's been delivered in their ward for a particular project that's took place in a particular place. Now, some of our contracts / frameworks do go citywide, so that's where the local probably is Manchester first and foremost, because we want the benefit to be for Manchester residents. So it does open up a bit more if the scope is not necessarily is contained within an area itself, so within a particular ward of Manchester. So I think where ActionFunder would be really helpful is obviously you can use the postcode of an area to see what's available in that area, and then that obviously you can use that to deliver really localised social value. And if you are struggling as a supplier, that's obviously where you can come to the social value leads, and we can obviously do introductions to teams that can help, or put you in touch with the neighbourhood officers that are obviously on the local level, understanding the problems of all things that need to be resolved within a local area itself.
Thanks, Jess. And then Andrew, from a bidder side, you seem to be in a fantastic position where you have a number of clients in Manchester, and we're in a similar space. So we work with the university, we have the pleasure of working with Jess and her team, we work with the combined authority, we work with staff procurement, and they all have different priorities. How do you prepare the business, and in particular the commercial team and the specific bid writer, how do you prepare them to respond to a bid that they've not yet got the particular specific detail around?
It can be difficult, and I think Jess's presentation gave a really clear example of how social value can be procured really well. In that Manchester, as an example, as an authority, has been quite clear with what it's looking to achieve through its social value strategy and benefits. But of course, as a business, you need to do your research, and certainly for us, we like to engage in that process as early as possible. Hopefully, knowing and understanding when certain opportunities will become available, to research that ahead of time and really try and find out what is important to the city by researching their social value themes. We try where possible, of course, to align that with our business and the areas in which we think we can add the greatest value. And hopefully we gave some examples of that through the presentation. And I think what's really interesting when you start looking at a more hyper-local level is the recent partnership that we have with ActionFunder, which is allowing us to engage with some smaller organisations that ordinarily we wouldn't have been able to reach, and being able to see that value is going directly into the community, as well as providing benefits to other areas of the city is really, really valuable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And most organisations that I talk to are really trying to understand if they need to present a big number. So from a value perspective, should it be a really big number, or should it be something that the community are desperately in need for? How do you balance that? You're trying to secure the work, you've got some innovative solutions, but you're also trying to give the community what it needs. How do you balance that, Andrew, with your team?
I think where possible, we try and provide an element of flexibility, because we may think that we know the answer to these questions, but we don't necessarily know for sure. And I think it's for us as a bidder to come up with potential solutions and then be guided on the authority on the final outcome and how we deliver that. But looking at that example of Manchester, these are the numbers I shared with you. These are targets that we're benchmarked on through the delivery of the contract. So as Jess was saying, it's no longer a nice to have. Social value is an essential part of procurement, and it's something that we recognise we must take really seriously.
Absolutely. So from our experience, based on the evaluation and measurement of thousands of projects, we see that the qualitative response, so the method statements and the delivery, top marks on that half of the bid, improves chances of winning by 56%. So it's critical that our bidders are able to show how they're going to deliver what they promise, that they've got good, strong processes in place, and that they've been very specific to beneficiaries. So Mark, coming over to you, when we consider social value that a bidder believes the community needs versus the social value that a community asks for themselves, what's more important?
Well, it's got to be the community, I'd say. I mean, the whole funding environment is going through quite a change at the moment, and you know, Leah, we set up ActionFunder. We launched a couple of years ago. It was a load of scribbles on one of those static whiteboards on my living room wall that kept falling off. We're really delighted now that it's providing some value and some use. But right from those early days, we were very aware that this has to be something that works for the community, because ultimately the reason for delivering social value is to deliver social benefit. And who better than to know what that benefit will be than the local people who understand the local needs. So I think there's a lot more integrity to, I think it's brilliant, by the way, what Manchester City Council and JCDecaux, what they're doing collectively. And I think by making bids now applicable, by having to deliver social value through bids, it's fantastic. But I would say that to carry the most amount of kind of authenticity would be looking at what that community needs and responding to it. And going back to your question around, should it be a big number or lots of small numbers? I think you can have both. I think that what we've seen is that you can generate more impact by getting smaller amounts of money to lots of different people, but you need to be able to have the system to actually collect it and monitor it. So I think the overall impact is big, and you have a big, large number, but actually you should be able to drill down into, you know, the detail behind that. And obviously what you do at Social Value Portal is brilliant around that, because you're creating a framework that people can start to really understand the impact they're creating.
No, absolutely. Thank you. And Jess, just coming back to the detail of how you ask for social value. So you're using the TOM system, the national TOMs, but how have you made it specific to Manchester?
So at the moment, this is just a highway specific thing, because within the council, I think there's only a couple of services using Social Value Portal as the management system. So I can only speak for highways, but what we essentially have done is working with the social value advisors, really looked at the TOM set and understood what is bespoke to our service, and unpicking those and creating a real quality set of around 40 to 50 TOMs that specifically can be achievable for our projects. Then we have then looked at our tender questions, and then we themed them similar to the themes that the TOMs are in. So, you know, in terms of jobs and employment and skills for local people, helping out with the community, environmental sustainability. So each question is now themed, and then we will use the specific KPIs within the question itself. So it could read along the lines of, based on social value KPI X, please say how you as an organisation will deliver X for the duration of this contract. And then it has a little section that can unpick it even more to help with some examples. So we've tried to make the tender questions really bespoke to kind of where we want to see social value delivered as a service, and then using the KPIs as the foundations to help with those kind of tangible targets we want to see, and just draw out the responses from the supplier, as well as letting them have ownership over the response as well. So just trying to put a framework in place that guides and has those conversations to really draw out the tender response.
Thank you. That's very clear. So if we go to the end of the process, with hope, we've done our preparation, we've put a stellar bid together, you believe that we're going to deliver it, and it meets the needs of the community. we sign the contract and we get into that delivery phase. What happens with that data and that story once it's been delivered? What do you do with that? So Andrew, big undertaking from you and your team to get this into reality. What do you do as a business with that data and with those stories once you've actually completed your part of the deal?
Well, it's an ongoing process. I mean, we have regular management meetings with Manchester to review the progress of it, and all of the data is shared with the team at Manchester. Of course, not all of the data is made public, depending on the conditions of the contract that you may have. But certainly, for us, it's really important to try and show the impact it's had. We want people to be aware of the success and the value that we hope we're bringing to the local community. And that's kind of why we wanted to share some of that data with you today, because we're proud of the way it's going and the achievements to date. And it's a really important part of the contract management process, and certainly something that we're looking to encourage more and more.
Thank you. Jess, I was really interested about what you said around councillors using that information around delivery. How is it that they talk to the constituents or the community about the policies that they're supporting throughout the council?
So I think for those, it'll be feeding into each ward within Manchester has its own ward priority plans. So that's where they'll feed into conversations there. So there might be consultation around what improvements a ward might need, and then having conversations with constituents that way. I know most councillors do have surgeries and things like that as well, where residents can pop in and have conversations. I think in terms of coming to us as a service who obviously procure and social value through our contracts, it's just making sure that what is being asked is of a benefit to the community. So we do have really good relationships with internal teams to understand the priorities of a particular ward and how we can obviously help with our SV delivery to achieve some of those priorities or resolve some of the inequalities. As a service, we've started doing a social value considerations report. So that's a really early engagement across service piece of work that looks at a particular area and understands kind of where the priorities of the area may lie and where the construction kind of social value could be delivered to help with those priorities or kind of inequalities or any gaps within the area have been identified, how we can really create that hyper-local bespoke social value using those priorities that have been identified during that report piece.
That's really interesting. And then Jess, how do you use the delivery and the lessons learned from these fantastic projects, most of those that go well? How do you use that as a team to feed into new projects going forward?
So first and foremost, we would look at the report for the project on the social value portal once it's been verified and they've got the closed down report, understand what TOMs have been used and what's been used well, understand with the contractor as well what was easy to deliver and what did they struggle with. I think a lot of the work we do, we try where possible to make social value easy to deliver and work with the supplier. So we do really look at the contract length and value to make sure we're asking the right questions. Don't want it to be, a really short contract and you're expected to take on a local employee. We know, given the timescales, it's probably not feasible. So it is looking at those reports to understand what's gone well or could be improved, as well as working with the supply chain to understand what they felt worked well, or where we could have maybe worked with them a little better to deliver social value as well. But I think on the ground here in those case studies, the social values in Carbon team collect a quarterly newsletter of all case studies from all projects or frameworks. So response internally from that as well, whether it be from the exec member or the senior management team within highways. Obviously that feeds into things that have worked well and what they would like to see more of as well.
That's great, thank you. And then Mark, we can get some real content and quality stories out of the reports that you pull together, where do they go? So one of your clients, Sir Robert McAlpine, where do they take that story once it's all completed?
Yeah, it's a good question, Leo. And actually, we're working on improving this. We're constantly evolving our platform. So the first thing is that when the posts you saw, there were hundreds of posts that had come in against the McAlpine profile. When the posts come in, they can just share that across their social media channels immediately, or they can share it with their employees because there's a lot of stats around if you're a respected organization, you're going to win the war on talent. So they can share the activity, the posts, the videos, the updates, the stories as they come in internally and externally. When a project completes, ActionFunder, the platform, sends them an impact survey and they fill that in. So the second thing to say is that you're not waiting for everyone to finish and then you send them a survey and then you kind of get the results and so on. But when it's all finished, you actually start to get the updates and the outcomes as the projects are finishing themselves. So it's very dynamic. And I think that's really important because you want to be kind of understanding what's going on when it's going on. And then thirdly, as I showed you with that Edinburgh Fund example, once all the projects have filled in their impact surveys, the report is finalized. And we've got downloads, so you can download all the information to a CSV file. You can share that out, etc. But one thing that we're going to be doing, our sharing tools on the reporting side, we're working on. And so early next year, you'll be able to literally press a button and it'll almost download that report a little bit like an ESG report, the touch of a button. And that's not just at a fund level, like that Edinburgh bit, but it's also at a profile level. So it's everything that your company is doing at one time. Because we hear that ESG managers have a nightmare writing their ESG reports. And if they could press a button and basically download a report on everything that they're supporting, then that would be gold dust. So that we should have that ready in the next kind of 3 to 4 months. Let's see.
Thank you. So we're going to head to the floor and just take some questions from the audience. And Mark, Andrew and Jess, if there are questions that you have of each other that I didn't ask, please jump in. There's one question here, which I'm going to direct to you. It's from Neelam. And Neelam would like to know, what tips are there for an effective place to start when it comes to social value? So what area would you suggest any organisation to concentrate on, for example? Is it employment or is it their environmental outcomes? I'm coming to you, Andrew, because your founder, Jean-Claude, seemed to have given you a really good head start, which is the value that you deliver is going to be through the project itself. And that's a really simple place to start. How do you manage the innovation of your team in wanting to do lots of other things outside of your core project? How do you control that?
Well, we review all the opportunities that come our way, and it's it's difficult to narrow that down to just one area. But certainly, for us, the progress we've made in sustainability and our vision of getting to become a carbon neutral business has been really important, because we have as part of our business a huge operational service in terms of the assets that we maintain. So that is, I would say, first and foremost as kind of a direction for the company. And I think once you set that direction, the social value benefits start to take place, and you can define your strategy from that. In terms of the contract by contract level, I think it goes back to that research element and really making sure that you're in tune with what the city is looking for and able to offer a variety of benefits, not just narrowed particularly to one area.
Thank you. Jess, what are the best examples you've seen in receiving social value offers from a range of organisations cross sector? What are the themes in terms of the best examples that you've been offered?
I think one of the best ones we had, is this in terms of delivery or in terms of at tender stage, or a bit of both?
A bit of both.
So I think in terms of delivery, we had a homeless employee who had been working with one of our suppliers. Their contract had come to an end because the works were finished, and they put an ask out to their subcontractors to see if there was anyone that would take that particular employee on. And then one of the subcontractors did actually reply and then took him on permanently. So he went from just being on, a temporary job within one contractor to actually being on a permanent role within one of their subcontractors. And they do some works for us still to this day, and I know for a fact that a member of staff is still there. So that's a really nice example of suppliers coming together to ensure that someone does have an employment opportunity. I think in terms of tenders, I don't know where to start this. There's been a lot in terms of good responses. I think it is more when you see how the supply chain is connecting with some of the core strategic objectives of MCC. So when it is really unpicked within those tender responses. So I think coupled recently, we've had support for employing key priority groups across a new framework, and then really setting tangible targets for the duration of that framework. That's come from the supply chain, not come from us as a service. That's their own targets they've set. So they've took information on board and then set, seeing that as a key priority group, especially not just an FTE for someone that's local. They've took it to that next level of trying to help Manchester with their overall priorities of employing those that might be a care leaver or ex-armed forces or a long-term unemployed. So I think it's the quality of the responses we're getting at the moment to see that suppliers are really understanding what us as an organisation are trying to drive forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you, Jess. Mark, I'd like to come to you with the question from Jabba, which is, what is the best way to contact local communities to help them develop social value for a particular organisation?
Oh, I'm going to have such a biased answer here. So, of course, I would say log into ActionFunder. It's free. And have an explore around and see what the local communities are around your business that are relevant to your business. And if you like what you see on that Discover tool that I showed you earlier, you can just move that into fund mode, and you can start to then put funds actually into the local community. So it really is that simple. But I think it's really important that you involve your employees around that as well. The companies we're working with a number of companies who involve their employees. We have things like nomination forms, so the employees can nominate projects they want you to fund as a company. We've got voting tools. So this is really interesting. So instead of the company deciding or the funder deciding where the money goes, they can send out a link and to key stakeholders in the community, and the community can decide. So we'd love to see you on there, Jabba. And if you need anything, just drop me an email. I'm mark@actionfunder.org.
Thank you. So as we prepare to close, I'd just like to have your final parting comments, Jess. So whether that's to bidders who are looking to work with Manchester, or just from your perspective, working day in, day out with your supply chain to improve the lives of communities in your local area, what would be your top tip or your top ask of them? And I'll ask the same for you, Andrew, as a bidder who is often under pressure in very tight commercial situations with short deadlines and big opportunities. What would be your number one focus item for people to think about as they're preparing to either embark on this journey or to improve their performance around the delivery of social value? And then final one from you, Mark. So we'll start with Jess, and it'd just be your parting comment before we wrap up. Any unanswered questions we will follow up on email. So over to you, Jess.
I think just to reiterate some of the things that I said in my slides, and we've had drawn out in the Q&A as well. I think it's really important for people putting in bids for works that everything that in the response is relevant and specific to the question asked. I think just do your research before you engage. I know Andrew said it is hard to obviously kind of understand until you know a specific project to do lots of research, but I think where possible that researching and understanding kind of the nature of what the local authority might be asking for is your best starting point, because you're already halfway on the battle with us then, and it's not a battle, but you're already halfway on the journey then to kind of answering those questions and really offering bespoke social value. So at the end of the day, we just want to see the best for the community and the residents where the work's being delivered. So, and improving some of those inequalities. Both Manchester and the GMCA have got the same line in terms of, so they want social value delivery is to be a mechanism that changes driven through, but they both want it to be a mechanism where those inequalities of the wards in the region are addressed. So the fact that we have that mandatory weighting of 30% is there. We want social value to be the vehicle of change. So I think researching and understanding those objectives is definitely a good starting point, and then just making sure the questions are relevant and specific to those projects that are going on, and don't bite off more than you can chew. Obviously, as a supplier, you want the social value to be delivered, you want it to be achievable, you don't want it to be a task that's an uphill struggle. It needs to be specific. So I think do make it specific, but also make sure it is something that is achievable. So make the target something that you can deliver upon, and if you can't at the contract we normally do like startup meetings with our successful suppliers. Make it known there early on that you might need to tweak some of your social value targets, because after the tender process is finished, something might have happened. So have that open dialogue to obviously tweak your targets so then you can still be achievable in ways that works for the business as well as the people that you're doing the works for as well.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jess. Andrew?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, look at the strengths of your own business and how you feel you can contribute to social value. All businesses are unique, and the passion of your people is really important as well. But particularly if you're providing services in the local community that you're looking to secure a contract with. So I definitely think look internally as a business first, just to really highlight what your strengths are, and then as we talked about previously, research is key, and as Jess said, making sure that what you put forward really is deliverable, and that you don't put forward something that you can't come through on,
because she will check. She'll come after you.
Indeed, absolutely, and that's the way it should be.
Absolutely agreed. Thank you. And final comments from you, please, Mark.
Yeah, look, it's not easy, but I think keeping it simple, achievable, dare to engage early with the local community, find out what they want, work with them. And I think working with the frameworks that are being provided by the councils and Social Value Portal are a great place to guide you through that. So it's an evolving area, but play to your strengths, keep it simple, engage with the community, and obviously come and use ActionFunder if you think that'll help you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you to all of you who've managed to last for the full session. I can direct you to the Social Value Portal. We have free resources, information, videos, guides, how-tos for everybody on the call, whether you're a bidder, a buyer. So please visit the portal and make sure you can get access to those and ask us any questions for support. Special thank you to yourself, Jess, and you, Andrew. Thank you very much, Mark. See you soon.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.